corner nations rise, with fire burning in their eyes, a tapestry of hopes and fears.
Okay, welcome to the deep dive. We've got this stack of fascinating source material you've shared with us today, articles, some research, your notes, all focused on a massive, unfolding global event in the world of football. Our mission, as always, is to unpack this, find those crucial nuggets of knowledge, and get you well-informed, quickly, and hopefully entertainingly. And the absolute lead news straight from our sources right now. FIFA's official confirmation this week that the very first North African team has officially qualified for the 2026 World Cup. That team is Morocco.
Okay, and this isn't just any qualification, is it? What's fascinating here is that this is a real landmark achievement. It doesn't just put Morocco on the map for 2026. It really solidifies the growing power and reputation of African football on the global stage. And, if we connect this to the bigger picture, this deep dive is going to explore how this success story fits into the massive, frankly, radical changes that are completely reshaping the 2026 World Cup tournament itself.
Absolutely. Let's unpack that scale. Because massive feels like, well, an understatement. Just the qualification process involves over 200 national teams across 6 confederations. That's the largest pool trying to get in ever.
What's fascinating here is how record-breaking the 2026 edition is becoming. It's expanding to 48 participating squads spread across not one, but 3 host nations: the United States, Canada, and Mexico. The sources really emphasize that this raises the stakes significantly, especially for confederations like Africa, which started with just 9 direct slots for 54 competing nations.
Yeah, that's incredibly tough. And the sources highlight 3 key things dominating discussions around this expansion.
Right, the unprecedented 40% jump in participants.
40%.
Yeah. Then the strategic co-hosting by the U.S., Canada, and Mexico.
Okay.
And a completely revised group stage format designed to keep more teams in the tournament longer.
The United States is clearly playing a pivotal role, scheduled to host the majority of the matches, something like 60% of them.
Yeah, that's right. And FIFA's stated goal with this expansion is clear. They want greater representation for emerging football nations, while simultaneously putting the traditional powerhouses to the test in a new format. What's wild is that even now, with qualification heating up, our sources confirm there are still nearly 80 spots yet to be decided.
So this story is very much still unfolding. Even with over 2 years until kickoff, there's already huge attention on who might make those final rosters and what tactical approaches teams will take. Let's dive into this expansion itself, going from 32 to 48 teams. The sources call this FIFA's most radical overhaul in decades, and it's fundamentally reshaping the global football landscape.
It's been a long time coming. The sources note this is the first increase in almost 30 years.
28 years, yeah.
And only the 8th format change since the very first World Cup back in 1930.
Wow.
That's right. As the FIFA president put it when they approved this decision balances tradition with progress. And the comparison data really shows the dramatic shift.
Okay, break that down.
Think about 1998. 32 teams, 8 groups, 64 matches, over 32 days.
Right.
2022 is pretty similar. 32 teams, 8 groups, 64 matches, just slightly shorter at 29 days.
Okay.
Now, for 2026, we jump to 48 teams, broken into 12 groups, playing a massive 104 matches over 39 days.
104 matches. Wow, that's almost double the number of knockout stage participants then.
It is. The new structure is 12 groups of 4 teams. The top 2 from each group will advance, plus the 8 best third-place teams.
8 third-place teams. Okay.
This nearly doubles the number of teams reaching the knockout rounds compared to the old format. And it requires some major operational changes.
Yeah.
Coordinating across 3 host nations and potentially 16 venues.
16 venues.
Built-in extended rest periods between matches and revised tiebreaker criteria for the group stages.
That adds incredible diversity, having 24 additional squads competing.
Absolutely. And the projected viewership numbers really reflect the scale. FIFA estimates something like 5.5 billion cumulative viewers.
5.5 billion.
Which is a projected 25% increase from the numbers seen in 2022.
Okay. Let's really zoom in on Morocco's journey to get here.
Yeah.
The sources describe their qualification path as blending strategic precision with raw determination. What were some of the key moments?
It truly was impressive. There were some decisive wins, like a 3-0 victory against Senegal back in November 2023.
That's significant.
Yeah, significant because it was their first win against the reigning African champions in a decade. Then A great comeback 2-1 triumph over Cameroon that secured their top spot in the group with games still to play.
And there was a moment that felt like an emotional turning point.
Definitely. The sources point to midfielder Sofiane Amrabat's equalizer deep in stoppage time against Algeria.
Oh, wow.
A 94th minute goal that extended their unbeaten streak to 9 matches during the campaign. That kind of moment can really galvanize a team.
They faced significant challenges too, right? The sources mentioned injuries.
Absolutely. They had injuries to 4 starting defenders at one point, which really tested their depth. But they successfully integrated 3 young players from their U23 prospects. And those young players impressively contributed to 2 clean sheets in crucial matches. They also had logistical hurdles like the Confederation of African Football, CAF, rescheduling 2 matches within just 72 hours.
72 hours, wow. How did they handle that?
Their fitness coach, Juan Manuel Bernal, is quoted saying they adapted training loads and recovery protocols overnight, and the team still managed to grab 4 points from those 2 compressed games. That's serious resilience.
That takes incredible discipline and adaptability.
It does. And the sources note a key part of their final qualification push was a disciplined focus on maximizing set-piece efficiency. They scored 12 goals from corners and free kicks during the campaign.
12 goals just from set pieces.
Yeah, which was more than any other team in the African qualifiers.
So this achievement is more than just getting a ticket to the dance. FIFA's official verification really cements their position among football's top tier.
And it's a historic milestone for Morocco specifically, isn't it?
Yeah, tell us about that.
Yeah, tell us about that. It really is. This will be Morocco's 6th World Cup appearance. That puts them in an exclusive club. Only 5 other African countries have reached that many tournaments.
That's quite an achievement.
And the sources emphasize that this isn't sudden luck. It reflects decades of strategic development and fulfilling long-term goals for their federation. As FIFA's Secretary General stated, this qualification represents a paradigm shift for African football.
And looking back, they've already made some serious noise at previous World Cups, according to the sources.
They have a great history. They were the first African team to make it to the round of 16 back in 1986.
Right, I remember that.
And, of course, the incredible historic run to the semifinals in 2022.
Unforgettable.
That was a breakthrough moment for the entire continent. Now, qualified for 2026, the sources even point out their status as a potential future World Cup host candidate.
Ah, that's an interesting connection back to the overall tournament discussion. Potential hosts.
It is. It puts them in that rare category of nations seen as capable of both competing at the elite level and having the capacity to potentially host a major event. The sources really highlight 3 critical elements of this accomplishment. Undisputed qualification through CF's tough path, recognition as a proven World Cup contender on the global stage,
Right.
and demonstrating that capacity for major event organization.
And this Moroccan success story is having ripple effects across African football, isn't it? The sources talk about a seismic shift.
That's the phrase used, a seismic shift, that's reshaping continental dynamics. It's moving away from relying solely on historical dominance towards prioritizing strategic development. And it's giving confidence to emerging football nations across the continent.
How are the CAF qualifiers reflecting this change? Are we seeing it in the games?
Recent data shows a significant increase in goals scored by non-traditional teams compared to previous cycles. The sources quote South Africa's technical director saying, "The playing field is leveling faster than predicted. New scouting networks, leveraging data-driven tactics, these are actively challenging the established powerhouses."
And the data suggests younger players are a big part of this.
Yes, it does. The sources show a substantial rise in the use of youth players by teams in the current qualification cycle compared to the previous one.
Like how much of a rise?
Something like 18% in 2014-2018 versus 34% in the 2022-2026 cycle.
It's a big jump.
It is. And this isn't just a number. It's an insight into a deliberate, data-backed shift across Africa towards investing in and utilizing long-term player development, likely fueled in part by successful examples like Morocco. They also point to trends like expanded use of video analysis, almost 90% of squads using it now,
Wow.
a 40% rise in cross-confederation coaching hires, and tripled investment in regional talent incubators.
It sounds like Morocco's model is inspiring teams nearby.
Absolutely. The sources give examples, like South Africa's U23 squad adopting elements of Morocco's academy model and seeing, reportedly, 22% faster player development as a result.
Okay.
Neighboring nations are prioritizing things like enhanced fan engagement, sharing scouting data, and investing in pre-qualification training camps together. This renewed ambition is impacting players too, with significantly more transfers to European leagues since 2022.
63% more, the sources said.
That's the number, yeah. And fans are driving momentum record jersey sales, huge social media engagement, and a noticeable surge, like 17%, in stadium attendance for qualifying matches in key nations.
So that's the intense path in Africa. How does qualification compare in other parts of the world? Is it this tough everywhere?
Global qualification pathways show some stark contrasts. While CCAF has rigorous stages, the sources note Asia often uses league-style group stages. South America, CONMEBOL, has that famous 10-nation round-robin marathon where everyone plays everyone home and away.
Right, the marathon.
In Europe, UEFA has more compressed qualifying windows due to crowded club schedules. As the FIFA president highlighted, equitable access remains our priority despite geographical complexities, acknowledging these different paths.
What are some critical regional distinctions the sources point out, like automatic spots?
Yeah, the North American Confederation, CONCACAF, benefits significantly from having 6 automatic slots.
6.
Well, the 3 hosts get in automatically, plus 3 others qualify. Oceania, OFC, in contrast, typically gets only a single guaranteed spot, leading to intense preliminary rounds just to get that one chance.
Just one spot for all of Oceania.
Tough.
Very tough. Europe UEFA has the most slots, 16, but even with that many, we still see upsets. It's never guaranteed.
And the sources give some interesting numbers comparing the scale.
Right. In CONCACAF, you have 54 teams competing for 9 slots, playing about 8 matches on average.
Okay.
In UEFA, 55 teams for 16 slots, average 10 matches.
Right.
In CONMEBOL, just 10 teams, but they play that long round robin, 18 matches for 6 slots.
That CONMEBOL path sounds brutal. It's grueling. What's fascinating here is how being a host country like the US, Canada, and Mexico gives you that automatic spot bypassing the risk.
Yeah, avoiding that whole CONCACAF qualification minefield.
Exactly. The sources also note how nations like Qatar leverage their infrastructure investments for the 2022 tournament to potentially strengthen future hosting bids. These dynamics show a shift where established countries might rely on legacy systems, while emerging nations are increasingly adopting data-driven approaches to close resource gaps.
Okay, let's pivot to those hosts, the US, Canada, and Mexico. What are the big challenges they face pulling this off across 3 countries?
Oh, the sources highlight incredibly complex challenges. Balancing the immense infrastructure demands of a 48-team tournament spread across 3 countries with various geopolitical realities. The United States is taking the lead on logistical coordination across its, 11 host cities?
11, yeah.
Leveraging upgraded stadiums and transportation. FIFA's technical inspectors have reportedly praised the progress at venues like MetLife Stadium near New York, citing enhanced security and crowd management.
It's truly unprecedented collaboration for 3 different nations.
It absolutely is. Canada's Vancouver, BC Place and Mexico's historic Estadio Azteca will host important matches. Key operational priorities involve streamlining visa processes for teams and staff from 48 nations.
48 nations needing visas.
Coordinating border security, and ensuring world-class training facilities, including climate-controlled options in warmer venues.
The sources give some great details on specific iconic stadiums hosting.
Yeah, MetLife Stadium in the New York, New Jersey area with its massive capacity, 82,500, and hybrid turf.
Okay.
SoFi Stadium in Los Angeles, known for its incredible 360-degree video board and 70,000-plus capacity.
Right.
And, of course, Mexico City's Estadio Azteca, a venue steeped in World Cup history, famous for its high altitude, holds over 87,000.
And how is the global media reacting to the hosting challenge? Must be huge.
It's a huge story for global broadcasters. Networks are mobilizing unprecedented resources. The sources mention Fox Sports securing the exclusive U.S. rights in a, $1.1 billion deal.
Billion-dollar deal.
While Televisa Univision handles Spanish language coverage, European networks are already figuring out scheduling challenges with the expanded 39-day window. As one BBC correspondent put it, this event will redefine live sports production.
The sources also touch on a point of controversy regarding potential implications of travel policies, mentioning the previous U.S. travel ban. How is that being handled?
Yes, the sources note that this was discussed. FIFA reportedly confirmed that any restrictions would be waived for accredited personnel like teams and staff to ensure they could enter.
Okay, so teams and staff are covered.
Right. However, visa approvals for regular fans would remain subject to standard immigration protocols. The sources even mentioned that some broadcast partners are planning shows to analyze the potential political impacts on team and fan mobility.
Okay, impartiality noted there. Let's pivot back to infrastructure needs, especially relevant given Morocco's potential host status we discussed earlier. What's needed for future hosts?
Hosting the largest World Cup ever demands unprecedented infrastructure upgrades, not just in North America, but for future bidders, too. The sources highlight major renovations planned for Moroccan stadiums, including modernizing venues like Casablanca's Grand Stade, aiming for 80,000 seats,
80,000.
and the historic ground in Marrakech with $150 million upgrades mentioned.
Transportation networks sound critical for any host.
Absolutely. For a potential Moroccan bid, plans mentioned include a new high-speed rail line.
High-speed rail.
Yeah, Agadir to Rabat, cutting travel times by potentially 40% and expanding airports to handle millions, maybe 12 million, extra passengers. The sources give examples of planned projects: Casablanca Stadium expansion, Tangier Training Complex, Marrakech Fan Zone, focusing on building facilities that are World Cup ready by late 2025 or early 2026. This kind of preparation is key to positioning a region as a reliable partner for massive global events, like needing 35,000 new hotel rooms, quoting the tourism minister.
And the financials involved are just staggering globally.
They are. Hosting global sporting events now requires immense coordination between public funds and political will. Stadium construction budgets have, tripled since 2018, the sources say.
Tripled.
Yeah, and host cities face intense scrutiny over the long-term economic viability. The sources mention billions approved by the FIFA Congress for infrastructure commitments, $4.6 billion, with North American hosts leading the spending, about 72%.
Government guarantees often play a critical role, don't they, backing these projects?
Yes. The sources note that governments in the U.S., Canada, and Mexico have committed substantial public funds and subsidies, like the U.S. Senate approving $900 million in subsidies, Canada matching with provincial partnerships, often through federal grants or public-private partnerships, to cover the cost of necessary upgrades like stadium roofs, pitch technology, or security systems.
So Kansas City getting help with a roof, Toronto with pitch tech.
Exactly. Examples like that. While hosts anticipate massive economic impacts, estimates are around $12 billion in direct impact for North America. The sources emphasize that achieving lasting benefits requires very careful planning.
The sources mentioned the upcoming FIFA Congress in Moscow will finalize reserve venues.
Right, and the need for political stability is mentioned as a factor, with a high percentage, like 89%, of infrastructure contracts reportedly requiring state-backed insurance against potential disruptions.
Now, let's look at Morocco's specific vision, which the sources highlight as prioritizing legacy planning beyond the tournament. They aren't just building temporary structures.
That sounds very forward-thinking.
It does. Tell us more.
It really is. For the first time, the sources point to venue designs incorporating modular stadium concepts.
Modular, what does that mean practically?
Meaning significant parts of the structure, maybe 65%, can be reconfigured relatively quickly after the event. The vision includes transforming facilities like the Casablanca Arena into multi-sport and educational complexes. And the training center in Tangier is planned to become Africa's largest youth football academy, aiming to train 5,000 trainees by 2030.
5,000.
Wow.
What are some other examples of their legacy plans?
They include things like converting seating into adaptable community event spaces, maybe 40% of it, installing retractable roofs so venues can be used year-round for cultural events, and developing medical research centers integrated within stadium complexes. The sources provide specific examples of planned post-2026 uses. Marrakech becoming an agricultural hub, creating jobs.
An agricultural hub. Interesting.
Yeah. Rabat getting a national sports museum, Agadir Stadium potentially serving as a coastal disaster shelter.
It sounds like they want these venues to genuinely serve the communities long after the final whistle.
Exactly. The project's lead architect is quoted saying, "Our stadiums must serve generations beyond 2026. The sources emphasize that local communities are planned to get priority access to, 70% of these repurposed facilities. This transformative approach is highlighted as setting new standards, with legacy planning driving a much larger percentage of the budget, 43% versus maybe 12% previously.
So the venues become engines for future progress, not just temporary stages.
That's the idea.
Let's bring it back to the heart of football. The human element, the passion. Morocco's historic qualification clearly sparked nationwide euphoria.
It absolutely did. The sources describe spontaneous celebrations erupting in the streets, car horns honking, crowds gathering, social media exploding with, 2.1 million posts referencing the achievement within 24 hours.
You could practically feel the energy just reading about it.
You really can. The team captain, Romain Saez, is quoted capturing that feeling, saying the campaign united generations and that every pass, every tackle carried the hopes of millions. The Prime Minister praised the collective effort, highlighting the unshakable determination that defines our people.
And the scenes of community celebrations were just incredible, right? Like in Marrakech.
Absolutely. Places like the main square in Marrakech, Jama El Fna, filled with 50,000 supporters.
50,000.
Fans in Casablanca organized massive light shows with their phones. Local businesses saw record sales of team jerseys. The sources say 78% were sold within 48 hours of qualification.
Wow.
There were parades in Rabat, fireworks in Tangier, public mural painting in Agadir. The sources detail events across various cities. This shared pride truly transcended just the sport, with reports of schools postponing exams and workplaces adjusting schedules so people could join the celebrations.
That's amazing. The sources also spend time on how FIFA itself has changed its host selection process, aiming to combat past controversies.
Yes, that's a significant shift.
How has that changed specifically? What's different now?
The biggest change is moving away from decisions made behind closed doors by a small executive committee. The governing body now requires public voting by the full membership at its annual Congress.
Solo voting. Okay.
The new process includes mandatory technical evaluations by independent task forces, a transparent scoring system across hundreds, 340 detailed criteria, and the final selection happens via live vote broadcasts.
So the goal is less opportunity for, backroom deals and more based on merit.
That's precisely the stated goal. The sources mention the 2024 FIFA Congress in Moscow is set to showcase this new transparent process, with delegates from all 211 member associations casting their votes openly. As the FIFA president stated, this system prioritizes merit over politics. The sources provide a comparison. Pre-2018, it was 24 executive, maybe 32 factors, closed sessions. Now, it's the full Congress, 340 metrics, public disclosures.
And technical teams evaluate bids based on weighted criteria.
Right, with things like stadium readiness getting the highest weighting, maybe 40%, followed by environmental plans, 25%, legacy potential, 20%, and financial safeguards, 15%. This is a much more data-driven and transparent approach compared to cycles that might have relied more on less defined promises. The sources note this reformed process is already influencing bidding for other major football tournaments.
The media coverage of a World Cup is always immense.
Yeah.
What does the source material say about covering this expanded event? Is it just more?
Global media networks are mobilizing on an unprecedented scale. It's not just more, it's different. The sources say over 320 international outlets dedicated primetime coverage just to Morocco's qualification achievement within 2 days. Broadcasters across continents are adjusting schedules for the longer tournament.
And they have different strategies based on region, tailoring the coverage.
Definitely. European networks will focus on evening slots. Sources mention outlets like Al Jazeera Sports allocating 14 hours of daily airtime.
14 hours.
And ESPN Plus launching a dedicated streaming channel. The sources highlight specific regional approaches. North America's prime time, 7-9 p.m. EST, on partners like Fox and TSN, broadcast in English and Spanish.
Okay.
Africa's prime time, 8-10 p.m. CT, on networks like Supersport and Canal Plus A in French and Arabic. And Asia's prime time, 9-11 p.m. SGT, on networks like beIN Sports and Star TV, offering broadcasts in Mandarin and Hindi.
This extensive live coverage must be driving massive digital engagement, too.
Absolutely. Twitter reported 2.3 million tweets per hour related to key qualification moments. Mobile viewership has seen a huge surge, maybe 62% compared to previous major sports events. The sources also mention coordinated efforts across 78 nations through FIFA's centralized content hub.
The content hub.
Yeah, allowing networks to easily share footage and analysis while still providing their own regional commentary and perspectives. Public viewing events are planned in 14 countries with a multilingual broadcast, really demonstrating football's unifying power and setting new benchmarks for sports journalism.
Okay, let's talk tactics. The sources delve into the specifics behind Morocco's success. What's the expert analysis saying?
Analysts are dissecting their approach as a blueprint for other teams. Arsene Wenger, in a FIFA technical review, praised their calculated risk-taking, particularly in transition. Data cited shows a significant percentage, maybe 43% of their goals came from rapid counterattacks, a noticeable increase, like 19% from their previous campaigns.
43% from counters.
Yeah.
What were some specific tactical hallmarks?
Sources point to their effective high press system, forcing on average 2.3 turnovers per match high up the field.
Okay.
They were tactically flexible, with their 4-3-3 formation adapting well into a more defensive 5-4-1 when needed. And as we mentioned, their set-piece specialization was key. The data shows they were incredibly efficient, scoring every 27.8 attempts or so.
That's efficient.
Yeah. ESPN's Craig Burley is quoted highlighting their visionary integration of youth and experience, noting the balance. Average age of the starting Isaiah was 26.4 years, comparing it favorably to Germany's winning strategy in 2014.
Their defensive organization was also crucial, right? Very few goals conceded.
Absolutely. Only 0.7 goals conceded per game in qualifiers, one of the best records in Africa. Second best, actually. Jose Mourinho is quoted on their compact defensive lines that forced opponents into low percentage crosses. Stats confirm that a high percentage, like 78% of rival attacks, ended out wide, struggling to break through centrally.
So they really controlled the middle.
They did. The sources connect this to a broader tactical evolution seen among top teams, using more direct vertical passes, maybe a 37% increase from 2018, and driving the ball forward more aggressively, like 51% more progressive carries. Young players like the 19-year-old Bilal El Khanous are cited as examples of this modern, dynamic style.
And finally, let's look at the countdown itself and the sheer scale of the event scheduling and timeline leading up to 2026. This must be incredibly complex.
The sources describe this as arguably the most complex tournament preparation in history. The expanded format demands meticulous coordination over the next 2 years. Key dates are already set. Preliminary draws for early qualifiers in July 2024.
Okay, that's soon.
The last continental qualifiers wrapping up by March 2025. Teams have a deadline to release players in June 2026, with the final draw determining the group matchups in July 2026. What's interesting is that playoffs for those final spots continue right through November 2026.
Logistical hurdles must be immense with 3 host nations spread across 4 time zones.
They truly are. One challenge is stadium availability conflicting with other sports leagues like the NFL and MLS seasons. The sources quote the North American Bid Committee chair saying they're reworking dozens, maybe 63 venue contracts to meet FIFA's needs.
Reworking 63 contracts.
Yeah. The expanded format adds 40 matches, bringing the total to 104, requiring carefully scheduled 72-hour minimum rest periods between games to manage player fatigue. The broadcast demands alone are unprecedented, needing coordinated timing across the globe.
What are some of the other major coordination challenges mentioned?
16 stadiums undergoing simultaneous upgrades, 48 different squads needing to arrange pre-tournament camps, and 3.5 million tickets needing to be sold in phased releases.
3.5 million tickets.
Final preparations will accelerate significantly in June 2026 with crucial security and transport network tests. The opening match is officially set for June 11 in Mexico City, launching all 12 groups into this reshaped football landscape.
Well, we've taken a pretty deep dive into the sources, and it is crystal clear that football history is witnessing a truly transformative chapter right now.
It absolutely is. Morocco's historic qualification for the 2026 World Cup isn't just their story, it underscores the evolving dynamics of the sport globally. This 6th appearance for them is a testament to strategic planning and represents significant continental progress for African football.
And that expanded 48-team format is just fundamentally changing the opportunities and challenges for so many nations.
It really is. 3 host nations, revised qualification pathways, a larger knockout stage. It's amplifying diversity and opportunity. African squads, as the sources highlighted, are really leveraging government and confederation support, investing in development, and challenging traditional power structures. Morocco's achievement as the first team officially qualified under this new framework really sets a benchmark, fueled by youth development and tactical innovation. Global audiences are definitely in for a tournament that promises incredible cultural richness and technical brilliance in 2026.
So for you listening, why does this deep dive matter? Because it gives you a real head start on understanding the future of global football, the rising influence of different regions, the sheer scale of the planning required for an event this size, and what to expect as 2026 approaches.
This journey really highlights how dynamic football is. And given this massive expansion and the leveling playing field we're seeing emerge, especially in regions like Africa, here's a provocative thought for you to consider. How might the 2026 World Cup truly challenge the traditional football powerhouses and potentially lead to even more surprising results than we saw in 2022?
A great question to mull over as we head towards 2026. We've covered a lot, from Morocco's groundbreaking qualification and its impact on African football to the immense hosting challenges, the radical new format, and the legacy plans taking shape. Be sure to stay informed through official channels as teams across the globe continue to finalize their paths to North America.
Thanks for joining us for this deep dive. We look forward to the next one.